Why would a mother with no experience in the wilderness decide to take her sister and 13-year-old son to live off grid on a 10,000-foot mountain during a harsh winter? That is a story that we're going to look into today. It's a story I've been wanting to do. Becky and Christine Vance shared a home in Colorado Springs at the Windmill Apartments, a cozy little place with a heated outdoor pool. They had spent nearly their whole lives together. Becky, born in 1980, was the older sister, while Christine had followed in 1982. Their bond was so tight that their family and friends often joked that they were like twins, with Becky leading the way. Both sisters had inherited their mom's thick black hair and darker skin. In August 2022, Becky, whose real name was Rebecca, decided to ditch the chaos of modern life. She packed up and headed to the wilds of Colorado to live off-grid with just a few positive vibes and a handful of YouTube survival tips. She also dragged along her younger sister and son. Becky was ready to carve out a totally new life away from society, but what they thought would be a liberating adventure quickly spiraled into a nightmare. Earlier in August, Becky had popped by with her son Talon during lunchtime. She handed Talon's grandmother, Marilyn, a photo album and some keepsakes of Talon. Talon had lived with her and shared a room with his cousin Ashton when he visited. Rebecca mentioned they were leaving town. Becky was very vague about where they're going. She said that she, Talon, and her younger sister Christine was going to drive to West Virginia to stay with their father. And by the way, I did do a trace on Becky because of her Vance last name, which did lead back to Abner Vance, which means she is cousins with Devil Anse Hatfield from the Hatfield-McCoy feud. His mom also was traced back to Abner Vance. Anyways, Marilyn doubted Talon had ever even met the grandfather. To prevent Marilyn from asking Talon about the trip, Becky leaned in and whispered, "Please don't mention it. He thinks we're going camping." But younger sister Christine told a different story to their stepsister, Travala Jera. She said they're heading into the wilderness to live off-grid. Travala knew Becky well, having seen her every week pretty much, and throughout the pandemic, Becky had become fixated on conspiracy theories and fears about the end of the world. She was very concerned about technology and had convinced herself the only way to escape was to retreat far from everybody and everything. At first, younger sister Christine said she didn't want to go with Becky. She thought it was a bad idea since they lacked experience, and it really was. But Becky pursued her sister to come with her and her son. Even though they weren't exactly survival experts, they could figure it out as they went. Christine was very hesitant, but she realized they'd probably have a better shot if they did this together, like they always had. Plus, she didn't want her sister and nephew to face all this alone. So Christine handed Travala their mother's urn, asked for help with her cat Oreo, and she even offered to give her old car, but she couldn't find the title. Now, Talon was a cheerful kid, friendly and easy to get along with. He had friends in elementary school, but when COVID had hit, he was finishing off 5th grade, and his mom, Becky, pulled him out for reasons that puzzled the family. But she enrolled him in an online school program for 2 years and decided to keep him there even after the pandemic eased. Talon lost touch with friends and turned to his iPad instead. Becky didn't allow social media, so he filled his time with games. His favorites included Super Mario Bros., Minecraft, and Roblox, a platform popular with kids under 16. Digital school limited his real-life interactions, making online connections more important. As the moving date drew near, Talon started telling his friends he'd be leaving soon, though he didn't explain why. Despite Becky trying to be discreet, he was aware of the family's plan to move off-grid. Christine Vance, 41, her sister Rebecca Becky Vance, 42, and Becky's 13-year-old son Talon set off for Gunnison National Forest in Colorado. It was a big change, but they are excited to drive into nature and start again. Becky mentioned buying new boots. Travala responded, "Well, that's fine, but what if they get a hole?" Christine replied, "Hopefully we'll learn to make boots from nature by then." Becky sent a final text to someone she knew. They really want to merge men with machine, and I refuse to let them do that to me or my son. I don't know when all this will happen, but I think it's important for people to get out while they still can. And that was the end of the text. So the Vance family packed up their Hyundai and hit the road from Colorado Springs to Gunnison. After the 3.5 hour drive, they arrived at Gold Creek Campground, which sits almost 10,000 feet. There's no host or overnight fee, making it a simple spot for campers. The campground features 6 sites equipped with picnic tables and fire rings. One reviewer on Dirt raved about the area. They mentioned the great hiking, camping, and fishing, but warned that reaching the lakes from the campground is tricky. You either need a 4x4, ATV, or it's a very long hike. The reviewer went on to say they enjoyed the solitude, even spotting elk and deer. The Vance family likely spent a night or two searching around, staying at different places, and searching for the perfect spot to set up camp close to their car, but still a bit hidden. They discovered a nice area by following a trail behind campsite number 5, crossing a big log and weaving through the Douglas firs and tall grass into a very open forest-like area. The sisters felt reassured that Talent wouldn't be influenced negatively here, and he wouldn't grow up too fast. Meanwhile, grandmother Marilyn tried reaching out to the Vance sisters, but got no response at this point. Christine and Becky set up a tarp under their tent, but skipped the proper ground pads, which are key for staying warm and comfy. Instead, they used a blue quilt under their sleeping bags. They began building a shelter by cutting down tree trunks about 2 to 3 inches wide. The shelter stood about 4 feet tall, just enough to sit inside. In October, Becky, Christine, and Talon drove 45 minutes to Gunnison. They called their dad, Donald Vance, asking for $500. He agreed and sent the cash. They spent some of it at Walmart on a solo campfire stove. They also bought food, batteries, matches, and toilet paper. Afterward, they headed back to camp without letting anyone else in the family know or reaching out to anybody else. By late October, snow began to fall. Mid-November brought freezing temperatures. On November 25th, the United States Forest Service reported an abandoned car in Gunnison National Forest. An incident report mentioned that the area was searched but nothing was found, and attempts to reach the registered owners failed since both numbers were disconnected. A welfare check was initiated. On November 28th, the car was towed. Meanwhile, Grandma Marilyn kept trying to reach Becky, but her phone was off now. At some point, younger sister Christine cut her hair for reasons that remain unclear. It appears Talon may have died first, likely from illness or hypothermia. Becky and Christine moved his body near the tent behind a tree. Becky probably passed away next. Finally, Christine zipped herself into the sleeping bag and waited for her own end. At about 5:47 p.m. on July 9, 2023, Lieutenant Robert Summer got a call. A hiker named C.J. Malcolm spotted a gray nylon tent in some trees near Fossil Ridge. He went over and described it to the Gunnison County Sheriff's Office as an old squatter's camp. He also mentioned he found a mummy laying in the camp. Robert Summer didn't think it was wise to head out to the camp with night approaching. He reached out to investigator Sky Wells. They both agreed to wait until the next day to get a better look. On July 10th, 2023, the following day, investigators, along with the coroner, Michael Barnes, made their way to the campsite. They found a mummified body near the gray tent, which matched the description given by the hiker the day before. The body was identified as young Talon. He had 2 pairs of gray sweatpants on and a black sweatshirt over a red undershirt, no socks or shoes. Fetal position, a green rosary hung around his neck. They took forensic photos and then unzipped the tent. Inside, they discovered 2 more bodies, later identified as Becky and Christine. Becky lay on top of a black sleeping bag, dressed in a black sweatshirt and black sweatpants, also without socks and shoes. Around her neck was a wooden cross and a survival whistle. Christine was zipped in a blue sleeping bag, wearing gray sweatpants and a sweatshirt, long underwear, and a magenta beanie, and, like the others, she had no socks or shoes. The bodies were removed for transport. Trash was scattered throughout the camp, piling up around the bodies in the tent. The Gunnison County Sheriff's Office reported that the standing nylon dome tent suggested the victims might have survived part of the winter. They likely had to clear snow to prevent the tent from collapsing. The choice of the campsite hinted at their lack of bushcraft skills. The coroner began reaching out and eventually found the stepsister, Travala. It took 2 weeks to identify. On August 28, 2023, Gunnison County Coroner Michael Barnes released the autopsies for the Vance family. They all died from malnutrition and hypothermia. Becky weighed only 100 pounds, and Christine was only 96. Christine's autopsy noted small stomach erosions, signs of hypothermia. Talon only weighed 40 pounds. The coroner estimated they likely died by late December from starvation and freezing conditions. There was no carbon monoxide in their blood, suggesting they didn't have a fire for warmth in the confined space. The family's off-grid adventure ended in tragedy, resulting in their unimaginable deaths. Though, if you think about it, not that unexpected. Sometimes this world can drive you to do extreme things to escape back to the way we were created to live. Sadly, you have to know how to live like that, or else you're not going to live. They think that they probably tried to make it back to the car, but was driven back by the elements, and they just simply couldn't make it, and they waited too long. Just bad choices led to bad consequences. So this is where the story ends. Thank you for listening till the end, and we'll see you next time on the Hillbilly Files.